Hello, hello. Oh, turn the music down a little bit too much there. Rocking the lo-fi today. How's everybody doing? Happy Friday. I think we're going to be continuing the playing around with React. I always mess this up. React 3 Fiber. I always say React Fiber 3. Last time we dropped in some 3D text and we were playing around with showing that on the scene. I think we're going to continue that, and we're going to work on the animation of it, particularly the animation of it kind of coming in and going out. The other models that we've been looking at, if we do something on a Blender and pull a model from Blender into our scene, that can potentially move and do its own effectively transition. But if we just got text floating around on the screen, we need to be able to transition it in and out in a nicer manner than it just popping up on the screen. So that's what we're gonna play around with today. So we're using React 3 Fiber and a helper library on top of that called Dry. And this is what has the 3D text. I guess it's text 3D. I keep saying 3D text. Sure enough, text 3D. And that's what we're getting for it to pop up on our screen. So let's go ahead and start our server here so we can go to the page. And we also tossed it up on the scene here too, which we could probably pop up again. I am going to let's load. Did I break something? Where's our 3D text? Oh, yeah, we hooked it up with commands. So I think it pops up now if we do a command. I think I called it 3D. There you go. So anytime there's going to be an event, it's going to end up redrawing it. And I did put in this border. I should probably make like the whole background of that. Just to see where our frame is. Since we're planning on putting this here, see, so there was some joint events, and it disappeared. No, what was I saying? Oh, since we're planning on putting it on the stream, we've got a defined frame. You know, we're doing 1080 or 1920 by 1080 stream. So our frame can be that exactly. It's windy outside and the cats are going nuts over the leaves. And so we also have it in our scene. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh it. Refresh. Let's just blanket everything out. Did I goof up the... So our scene now, I'm gonna go ahead and drop another chat. 3D, it's showing up, but the problem is that our scene here, and I do actually have it in the corner, so the edge of it is like right there. Since I made the background white, that actually goofed up my opacity thing. I'm gonna go ahead and undo that real quick, since it's not doing what I was hoping it would do. Now the question is, where did I put it? Oh, I hard-coded it. Here. So we're doing this background color. I might just go ahead and take that out. I'm gonna have to do something different. I want to be able to see the edge of my frame here, but I also want to be able to use it on the stream. So is what it is, I guess. Just deal with that for right now. All right, there we go. Okay, so now it should pop up in the bottom left corner here. Very small. Oh, we do still need this in there, I think. There we go. Yep. Okay. I mean, that's fine for now. I think what I'm going to do is, it's actually, it's centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it down and make it just a little bit smaller. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. So we'll just go like that for right now. So you can kind of see, regardless of as I do stuff or as it updates, it'll show up there. And we do need to hook it up still to the channel point redemptions, but the channel point redemptions require auth, which I don't actually have dropped into the scene. I suppose I could do that real quick, but I don't know that that's going to actually give us much. So I think we're just going to jump right into the React Spring, and we'll hook up some more of these niceties as we go. So we want to be able to transition this thing in and out. We're going to be, it's interesting that I went way down there, but it's still here. So we'll be getting events, and every time we do an event, that's going to be, this component will redraw and trigger an update, and this is going to not transition nicely. And we did last time the text 3D, and we started looking at, there's use animations, and that's specifically within the model. We want to do, where did it go? Shaders, performance loaders. I think it's within this, although I could be misremembering. Cameras, controls. Shapes, abstractions. So here's our text 3D. I thought it was within this, but oh, that's cool. And we want to do a little bit more too with the meshes, because the meshes are what controls the colors on the things that we bring in. We have, maybe it's not in here. We have just a general mesh right now, and we can put textures on our models. So when we make a model, we can have a texture there. And cat being annoying. Yes, you. Come on. Now I lost my train of thought. Kitty, say hello. Kitty distracted me. So we were meshes, yes. When we're making a model, so if we make a model in Blender or something, we can apply textures there and we can load those textures. So those can be tied to the GLTF model that we can export from Blender. If we are just doing something directly here, such as this text 3D, we're going to need to pull in a mesh. And there's ways that we can pull in or have our meshes dynamic. So that can be part of the command or something. We can have the mesh be an option, which would be kind of fun. Or just we could have a random too even. But we are looking at, I think that the situation here is that we want to use React Spring. I thought there was a dry helper. That's what we were looking at. Suppose I can search for Spring. Spring can also be a Spring config. Ooh, interesting. Hi, Kitty. But we want to use React 3 to help us with these transitions. And there is this React Spring 3. Okay, so I guess this is technically with React 3 Fiber. So I think this should work fine. I think we basically end up installing it and we do something like this. And then we have a wobbly. And then we're passing essentially that config out of the Spring into like the meshes. So let's go ahead and, okay, Kitty. Okay, so like it would be something like this, where if the user clicks on it, which is not going to be as big of a deal here, but we're changing the scale, so it'll zoom in a little bit if it's active. And here's where we set the active state. Animated and config. Using undefined. That's funny. Oops. Let's look at the sandbox. I feel like there could be a little bit more. I've not used React Spring, so I also put, well, code sandbox is loading. We can take a quick look here. I don't know if there's some expectation that you have used React Spring. But I definitely feel like I could use a little bit more context on how this all fits together. So these are you. It looks like you kind of write them sort of in the vein of transitions, to and from. And you can chain stuff together, and that loops it, so it's chaining it back and forth. And it's applying this to an HTML element. So I think it's in the same vein. We are doing some things with use Spring, except the difference here is we're using React Spring 3. So it's in the 3D model rather than on HTML elements. And then we get, where's the animated come in? So then we use an animated mesh instead. I think that's sort of the big crux here. So we might end up having to do a little bit with meshes, which we have yet to do too much with. So here we're making a ref to the mesh, I'm presuming. Yep, so we've got a mesh, and within that mesh, use rotating box. So this whole thing is a mesh with a model, I guess. And there's definitely some like, I'm not importing that anywhere. So I'm assuming it's like built in canvas kind of stuff. So we might need to go seeking out some documentation there to kind of help us with some of these things that, like, it's like working with HTML elements, except I'm less aware of what those elements are. So within React, if you've got basically elements with capitalization, it is generally like a JSX component, which then gets created into DOM elements in the case of HTML. And typically when it's lowercase, then it's just an HTML element directly. And I'm not sure where this comes. Box buffer geometry. So like, I wonder if some of this stuff is just built into the wouldn't be 3.js, but the WebGL. That's the word I was looking for. WebGL is sort of the complement to HTML. So let's hop over to our code. We have some 3D text. We are going to just drop in like a generic thing here, so we get something visible here. When we get a Twitch event, right now we are specifically looking for the on command. So every time we get a Twitch event come in, it's going to essentially reset this as it is right now. And we'll probably want to architect it a little bit differently. But when that happens, if it wasn't a command event that came in, it was setting it to empty, which would give us nothing visible. So I'm actually kind of curious. Floating, whoop, not generic. Floating text. I'm curious how much this is gonna like pop out of our frame. So we might need to do a little bit of to respect this. Yeah. So if it's a certain number of characters, then like we're gonna have to deal with that. But we can. I was muted still. You can read my lips, right? So we've got floating text. We need to deal with the new lines. So when we made a change, it was going out of its container. And we've got every time there's an event that comes in, it was erasing or default or falling back to an empty set of text, which basically gave us nothing to show on the screen. So, well, we're gonna keep the switch event in there. We need to deal with the meshes, and I guess first things first. Let's go ahead and pull these in. I think three.js already comes in. I don't think we actually need that as a dependency. Oh, we've got it in there already. We're good. Okay. So we're going to pull in this. I think I did that right alphabetically. Just doing that quick in my head. Give me the latest, 945. Go ahead and install that real quick. And while that's installing, let's see how we can do our meshes. So this specifically has, we're just changing the scale on this one. So it's not actually doing anything with the anim. I feel like these are kind of conflicting. Yeah, this is not using React Spring at all. So this must be the other option. Which one did I click on? Oh. Got it. Got it. So we're taking this and we're extending it with React Spring. So we're going to go ahead and grab this. Start up our server again. Guess we'll drop that there, and then we need to use Spring and then animated. So animated is a component that is used. So instead of using mesh, you'll use animated.mesh if you want it to be affected by React Spring. And they still have a mesh in here. So I think there's some level of like, I can wrap this mesh. Something of this nature. So we've got animated.mesh, but we still have our mesh there. So this is the actual like mesh material itself. And I'm presuming we can have like I think we could actually just use this directly too. Like if we pulled this in, I think it would make our text blue. Let that reload. Maybe not. It's doing floating text. Why is it not interesting? Oh, okay, there we go. We've got errors. I think I need to play around with the hot reloading or something in this, because every time I hit reload, it doesn't seem to actually reload. Like the parcel server is caching something. We've ran into it in a bunch of these streams now, which is unfortunate, but okay, so there's an error. Skitty is looking at my green screen, and I see just things moving in the, like, just outside of my eyesight, which is super, which is super distracting. Okay. So this is complaining because it doesn't have scale. And we don't actually have any of that. Come on. All right, so we need to do this use spring. Oh my, okay, kitty. So we've got this use Twitch, and then this sets the text message, and then we're gonna add another hook called use spring, and this is what's pulling in the scale. And we had that scale here. I guess we can do, it's gonna be kind of a, well, I guess we can play around with it here. So let's just get the scale thing set up and working, and then we can go from there. So it's going to on click then. We needed the ref. So it's hitting a ref. Oh, I suppose we need to keep this open. It's referring to a lot of the code in this coincide mux. So it's using this ref that is set up. Up at the top here. We're gonna keep our Twitch events top level, and this is, we're gonna call it mesh ref. Because I'm not a huge fan of that. Let's zoom in just a little bit here so you can all read this better. So we got to update the ref because I changed the name of that. And now we can import the config option. So what's that actually? Oh, I see. Okay. So if we do this, and we drop this config here, that's going to make it wobbly. Mesh ref. All right, so I think that's supposedly it here. I'm going to do a hard reload because, oh, active. On click, set active. Oh. And we're probably going to have to play around with this a little bit here. Because I think this, we might end up running into issues. All right, so our mesh material is not. It's not working out, so we're just going to go back to the old one. Let's just revert that little piece. Okay. So now if I click it, it zooms in. Now we can't get that clicking to work on that one without some fiddling. And we have since stored the state of it being clicked or not in our use state. So this active and on click is what's triggering that to get bigger. When we click again, then it goes back to the original size. So we want to do more than just the scale. We want to actually we want to play around with, and this excuse me. So the scale, this is what's setting the scale. And then we also have this config. And then the config, I'm presuming, is it's affecting the actual transition. So the transition isn't a smooth like A to B. It kind of goes A to B and then like wobbles a little bit. So that I think is going to start falling back into the config that we might see within React Spring itself. And do we have... All right, is there any more? No. I think all of our docs are either going to be so this is using the animation within the actual model. If we want to do things outside of the model, this kind of stuff, we need to use React Spring. I think this is the, further reading, go to React Spring. Okay. So I'm thinking that library is for the most part just extending this, and we're, instead of using animated, we're using animated or mesh.animated, whichever it was. So we're doing this animated.mesh instead. So I think we want to do something like this, where we can try the opacity thing first. And this is running, it's got a delay. So the delay is between the to and the from. Config molasses, interesting. I don't know what this on rest. So there's this reverse flip and reset true. I'll have to play around with those a little bit. Because I'm not quite sure what they're doing here for us. So if we want to do something like this, so there's flip and set. And this is just applying to that. I don't know, like we kind of need to know what is being returned from uSpring. So if we just do this, I think that's going to give us a chance to inspect it prior to us actually doing anything with it. So we get an opacity. I see. So it seems for the most part we are going to be getting kind of whatever we're defining within here. And this opacity is going to be that we're transitioning to in between those. And we don't need that. And our animated.mesh, we need to understand hooks and events. Okay. So mesh has a bunch of these events. And what are the hooks? Events, selectors. Okay, so mesh, visible. User data, rotation, geometry, material. So there's a mesh material. You could lay it out. They will always have to be recreated. So what it's saying is we could do something like this. And we are setting them here. So we've got position, and we could probably play around with position instead of Is there, I guess it's just visible. Can we say, I wonder if it is able to take a value. So this is going to be going to and from that. And we'll see if the visible actually makes a difference. Spring is not defined. So there's still an issue with the mesh. I think there's something that we're not actually understanding there. It does appear to be okay, so that's a Boolean. Render object gets rendered if true. Is there anything that's actually going to allow us to transition? I guess what we could do instead, can we do scale? This is basically going from 0 to 1. So like if we do a chat event, it's just switching. So the re-render, we want this spring to happen on the mount. As it is set up right now. Because every time we get a Twitch event, this whole component is re-rendering. So we might need to play around with our architecture a little bit, where we mount this component and then we are not. I mean, is that what's really happening here? I mean, I guess it's changing the state every time, which is just the value. Where should we look for that? We can look at Effection docs, and then we're gonna go to. Oh, that's not good. Something get borked on our site? It might have. Oh, okay, that's weird. That is weird. Let's look at the Effection React package. And we are currently doing useStream. So it's setting the state and it's just returning a state. So the state is just changing every time. And I guess every time that text changes, it's doing something where it's like switching it out. So is there some way that we can do loading models, textures, I mean, basic animations? What kind of animations are they? We can update the state of our component via set state. Okay. So we want to directly mutate our mesh each frame. So what this is saying is when we are in React, we can, via props or state, basically like trigger re-render. But this is sitting on top of three.js and it's sort of doing its own DOM stuff. It uses some of the scheduling and whatnot behind React, as I understand. I mean, I think they do actually mention that, like at the root. And okay, I guess I can open that up. Oh, that's a drop down. Interesting. Yeah, there's no additional overhead. I keep clicking on random stuff. They participated in a unified render loop outside of React. So the render loop within our canvas is outside of React, but it uses some of React's scheduling. So when we're doing animations, if we just want a thing to animate outside of any state that we're playing around with, we can actually do it within the component directly and just kind of mutate that mesh. So like here, this would be setting the rotation. So it's just rotating once it loads, and we're mutating that node rather than going through the render loop of React. If you want to go deeper, go here, which is where we kind of are. So it's sort of doing something similar. So if it is, let's look at the basics, see what they have as far as, and we're gonna have to sort of like replace it in our head. So this is doing a transition from this to this. And this is working because it's actually transitioning the opacity. So if we want this to actually trigger when it comes in. So I think our first scale. So we're going from a scale of 0 to a scale of 1, essentially. And this is sort of a misnomer now. This is going to do like a zoom in effect rather than a fade. So the visible, it seems like it's just a toggle. I don't think we're going to be able to use that. But I think we can, by doing this, it's going to do that. Now, now that we have it loaded, now anytime we change the text, it is straight up just jumping. Because that's already come in. So we needed to come in, we need to zoom in, stay around for a little bit, and then zoom back out. Because what it's doing is the text used to be this, and it's just swapping the text in, I think is what's happening. So if we do reverse, is it going to then, what's flip? Oh, state, okay. Reset true. So maybe it will then, maybe reset is what's the thing that would be doing it for us. So if we do, if I can spell zoom, it's still sticking around over there. So we want it to actually like transition out. Can animate. So I guess we kind of want to see what some of these like config things are and whatnot. Number. So we're transitioning the number from, so is it saying this is, this use state thing is kind of interesting. Unrest. Okay. I'm starting to understand it now. We have we're starting from a number of 0. We're transitioning to number is 1. It is doing basically I'm presuming it's context aware, where it's doing a transition from like a value to a value. So in this case, it's actually doing it's counting up. It's delayed by 200 seconds. So it starts at 1. No, starts at... This from is a little bit confusing, I think. Because this definitely looks like it's starting at 1 and then going down to 0. So I might be misunderstanding that. I'm kind of curious what the reset equals true. I'm guessing after this whole thing is done, it's resetting back to the 1. And that's triggered by this. We've got a delay. Molasses is sort of how it's doing the transition. I'll look on the transition. When it stops, when it's done doing any transitions, then it triggers this function. This function is setting the state to the opposite of flip. So flip is a Boolean. So we're going true and false, true and false. So I think we can do something like we want to have a use state, and that is going to give us... We still have it up there? Yep. Yeah. That is going to give us a way to understand if it's come in or not. And then we can, when it's come in, we can basically transition it back out. We don't want it to loop. And I think we do want the delay. Oh, you can even do scroll. Interesting. So it's... We log in, that's undefined. Oh, the event, I guess. This one's doing that, but the one on the side is not. It's possible that the cache is still... Oh, we don't actually have the flip in there anywhere. That's probably what's goofing it up. Where's the flip? Reverse. There we go. So it comes in. I don't know why it's like a resetting. It's like shifting over. But it's interesting because we keep like resetting this whole component. So we might need to actually play around with our architecture of our components a little bit. Because we've got the text layer and then we've got the stream. So our function is this text layer, and then we could probably do something like this. Say with... I mean, we want to basically like give it a prop, but we don't want anytime this loads, we want it to just like load those events and start piping those into our canvas, but we want the state of that component separate. So if we do, I think we do something like this. And we are going to do return children. No. Guess we don't really want to. We want to return it to the component, so we want to give it a prop. So how do we put that together? I guess we can do kind of like a higher order component. Boy, it's been a while since I did that. Did we do it already with some of this Twitch stuff? Because we've got the use Twitch. We've got a with Twitch, which does. Okay, so there's a use Twitch, and then the with Twitch is specifically just grabbing the context. Okay, so we're not actually like pushing down any props in that. We want to. I guess we can higher order components. Is that what we want to do? It's been a while since I had to touch one of these. Like this architecture kind of fell out of style. So this takes, I guess it ends up being, we're not pulling in a children, we're pulling in a component. Component. So then here we're actually returning a component. And on that we can do the text message, I guess. So when we're doing the export, so we'll say const text layer. Equals this. Now we can do so that was a default export before, I think. No, it was a named export. So we can say export Mixiome ESM and CJS. We want to do export a named component. So we say export not text message. We're going to export the text layer. And that is going to be I think I'm gonna actually rename that. But I think we're doing something like this. Exports equal. Okay, so it's thinking it's node because I'm doing my exports wrong, I think. ESM export. I only ever do the default these days, or the named export. So export like that. So we want to say, I guess it's just export and a name. So I guess we end up doing export. Is that basically. But that's not going to work because we are then redefining it. So let's fix the names on our components a little bit here. With Twitch, We are gonna call it Twitch events. And we're gonna call this the text canvas, I guess. And those two things together give us the text layer. That feels reasonable. So now we should have a prop that is text message, of which we can use, and I think that'll help keep our two events separate. Text message is used down there. So I think if we do this and this, hopefully we have not broken anything. So it doesn't like that with the use context. And I mean, it's basically a child. So like we can say that this is a component like this. And like I think that's the same idea behind the higher order components. So text canvas is the component that we're getting. So we're pulling in a component. It is not liking this. Element type is invalid. We expected a string, but got an object. So we are getting a component. We are pulling in the component here and we're returning it and passing it a prop. Twitch events, text canvas. All right, let's just do div for the moment. Hopefully that'll make it clear what's going on. So it's definitely not anything to do with div. So we are exporting a function that is equal to I mean, does it literally have to be? Is that the piece that we're missing? Yeah. So it actually needed to be a function. That was, I think, the piece that we were missing here. So component equals this. Okay, now it's not complaining. And now we're not getting just a smattering of events that are happening up there. This is, the animation is still funky. But like, that's fine. Okay. I think those are just all old events, and they don't seem to continue to be happening. Maybe he wasn't actually doing that before. Maybe this just loads the last handful of events or something like that. So I might not have actually needed to do that, but you know, it's fine. A little bit of an abstraction is never the worst. So why is this looking kind of funky? Here we can go ahead and refresh the cache on the component over here. So like that's what it's doing. There's still something goofy with the mesh. Is that transparent maybe? And we're just gonna go back to the normal mesh. We need to play around with the mesh normal material. I don't know if that color is actually going to change anything. Yeah, we'll just stick with that for the moment. So it's transitioning in and out and it's shifting. And that shifting is definitely odd. So there is some float. If we did it something like 2000, where is this delay showing up? So it does make it stick around a little bit longer. This unrest is basically making it flip back and forth. So it's going to zoom in, and then we want it to zoom back out. I wonder what this reset does. I'm still not quite certain what that's doing. So it's still coming back in and out. And it seems that delay is actually the until it calls unrest. So I'm guessing it is zooming in, waiting 2000 or 2 seconds, doing the unrest function, and then transitioning back out. So this is we're gonna have to play around with that a little bit, I think. And I'm gonna have to think a little bit how I want to wire this up together, I believe. Because we needed to transition in and then transition back out and then wait for the next event. This is just a stream of events. I don't think we actually want to change the state every time one of these changes. So this hook is changing the state every time we get a new one. There's no delay or anything. We might want to make our own little hook here that is handling that and puts in a delay. Then we could kind of queue each of these up. And that might make this easier. Because then we can know that we're not going to get another event for another X amount of seconds. So we can have it come in and then go back out. So if we turn off this unrest, it's going to come in and it doesn't go back out because it's not resting, or we're not triggering an unrest. Unrest would keep flipping it back and forth. So like we kind of want to we can have it no op. So if we have this set to true, it's always going to just continue to set it to true, and I think this is going to end up no opping, in which case we won't get a transition. Comes in, goes out. Now we don't have that repeated in and out. That shift is still frustrating. I'm not sure what is triggering that. Comes in, goes out. And now it's completely detached from what the actual text is. So like even if we would do, here, we'll pull that back up. Even if we would do another chat, it's not actually going to change anything because it has transitioned out, so it's not shown anymore. So we need to like a way to like re-trigger it to basically rerun this whole animation, which I guess is basically re-rendering this whole. I guess we do actually want to keep them combined. We're definitely getting towards the end of the stream, but I think what we do is we end up gating. We get a stream of events. Right now we're just triggering them the moment we have them. I think what we do is we end up only popping stuff off the queue every X number of seconds or something. And that will, I think, help us out here. And then what we're going to do is anytime a new piece of text comes in, we're going to reset the state of the flip to false. And I think that's going to get it to trigger back in. I think so. I think that's gonna work. So you know, so much for doing all this. It was kind of a little bit of learning there, so I don't feel too bad. But we are going to just have a text canvas. We're going to say export text layer because that's what it was originally named. We're going to take this out. So now we have combined them again. Why are you complaining? Oh, okay. We hadn't reloaded yet. So now anytime we get a new piece of text, this is gonna trigger a state update. So use stream is what's gonna actually trigger the state update. We don't have right now a good way to access that state change because we're just getting the after effects of it. So we're just gonna pull that in for right now. And I think that's just gonna let us handle a lot of this easier. We are going to take out use stream, and instead we're going to do use operation. Take out all the TypeScript because we are not using TypeScript. So here our use operation is also setting a state with the initial state. And then we're just calling set state every time a new item on the stream pops in. So in reality, I think what we can do is we don't even need this separate function. We do this. We say the stream is going to be this. Our Twitch event is what's being returned, so it's our state. So we're going to do Twitch event, and we're going to say set Twitch event. So every time there's a new state, we're going to have it be, we'll just call it undefined for now, which is, whoop. Fine and dandy right here. So what we end up doing then is in this function, we are calling set state. We need to adjust this to say set Twitch event, and then we can also do set we're going to call it set model state. False is going to be sort of representative of us not being able to see it. So now anytime that triggers, we're going to be changing two pieces of state, the actual text itself, but then the state of that component stream is not defined. Okay. Where do I have stream? Oh, yes. Use operation. I think does some use effect stuff, if I recall correctly. And that's setting the thing that triggers it. So it came in, it went out. If we do new text, it didn't, came in, went out. Look at that. We are still getting a lot of these join events. And that command is triggering a whole bunch of times. So I think there's still some, yeah, like there's still something funky going on there. I think we need to gate something to not continue to re-trigger. But we're pretty close, I think. I need access to the state change. To tweak that model state as it comes in. So I think might need to move stuff around. We might still need that higher order component or something in that same vein, or have another component that like wraps and pulls these two pieces together. Because I think we're still getting re-rendering as each of these states are changing, and we don't need each of these to trigger and change each other. So a little bit of React things, but I think we're kind of there, and I think I'm starting to get a hang of the Spring. It would be nice if we had a little bit more with using Spring. Oh, pun intended. Using Spring within the context of React 3 Fiber. That would definitely be helpful. But I think for the most part, we're What render props? Interesting. We are... React Spring seems well thought out and well... Like it seems like the API is not huge, but I think it can do a lot. And I think understanding how all those pieces fit together is... What's trail? Interesting. I think understanding how all of the I suspect some of it comes into just general dealing with animations and transitions, and then that then falls back into there's a little bit of an expectation that you understand some of this and have like you're jumping to this as a way to like give yourself superpowers, but you already know how to do some of these things. That at first just jumping through this is sort of the feel that I get. Okay, so like these config things I think are what we're going to want to look into a little bit, because we can add things such as the mask and the tension. And I think that's going to give us some... Is this just a click one? Yeah, I think that's going to give us a little bit of fun things to play around with. And then there's all the easings and stuff. So I believe all of this config applies to three.js as well, or React Fiber 3, I guess. So we'll have to play around with the config a little bit, and then for the most part, we are just wherever I guess look at the code. Like once we kind of get the config figured out, like these little pieces here are just general, and then we're just going between values, and then we need to be able to pipe those values into our meshes. So we'll have to play around with a good model for sort of updating data and then having our three.js model react to that in a sort of transition-y kind of way. I think, I guess I haven't done... I suppose when I'm working with HTML and doing something like this, I'm transitioning between HTML elements, not actually like modifying the text in place. So like just that model I feel like is a little bit different. If you're doing CSS transitions, I think some of that is just handled via CSS, and it's since we're shifting into JavaScript and doing it within React Spring, that just shifts like the React mental model a little bit, I think, for me. So we're going to play around with that, but that is next time. We've got something that's kind of transitioning in, and we'll sort of transition between. Still want to fix that jump, but you know, and we'll need to deal with this a little bit. I don't know why all these unjoined events just keep triggering. And I think it has something to do with the, just conflating these state changes. So next time, but we're making progress. So happy Friday. Hope everybody has a good, for those that, it's Memorial Day, US holiday only, I guess. For those that have a long weekend, enjoy it. It's finally getting some nice weather around the area where I live, so I'm definitely going to spend some time outside. Otherwise, have a good weekend. Keep on experimenting. See you next time. Bye.